Gayatri Mantra is the essence of the entire Vedic knowledge is the Gayatri Mantra. As a human being, what is the most powerful equipment that we have? Anyone? What is the most powerful equipment that we have?
Mind.
Mind. But plants, animals, birds, all they also have a mind.
We to discriminate between
Vivek, yes. And Vivek Buddhi. So Buddhi is the word. Buddhi is what we have, which is very unique to human being. And one of the most important faculties of that Buddhi is self-awareness, that I can know myself. So I am aware of myself as a human being, not instinctively, but through intelligence. So this capability that Buddhi has of self-awareness, of discrimination, that capability is not there in the way in which it is there in us in a very sophisticated way. In the animals, it is not there. They are aware, but by instinct. So human buddhi has many capabilities. It has choice, it has discrimination, it has self-awareness, it has the ability to hold on to ideals, goals, value systems, and finally it has the ability to know the absolute truth also. So these are 6 very important faculties of the buddhi, the abilities of this buddhi. So Gayatri Mantra is a mantra to tap these faculties of these abilities of the buddhi. And hence a mantra right from childhood, the person is initiated into this mantra to be able to chant regularly, to meditate on the meaning and to invoke these 6 aspects. And so today that is what we will share, that what are the different aspects of this Gayatri Mantra. We will learn that part. So let me come to the presentation part of it. So here you will see the mantra, Gayatri Mantra, and the...
It's getting cut off, Swami. Now this is better. Can we put it all on mute? Then it will be better.
Okay.
All of us can be on.
Yeah. Yeah, so all are on mute now.
Singing na, it's a pravachan.
Okay. So this Gayatri Mantra is the mantra to invoke the greatest power that we have, which is the power of the buddhi, the thought power, the power of discrimination. And so it is a mantra where the entire Vedic knowledge, the essence of this Vedic knowledge is there in this Gayatri Mantra as a complete summary. And it is also a mantra which is a universal prayer, because it is to invoke the brilliance and the power of the buddhi. And sun is being looked upon as a symbol of the creator. Today across the world we find a lot of people taking up to sun worship. Many people who don't believe in form, they don't believe in any specific deity or a form of the Lord. they are taking up to sun worship. There are groups which are there. If you do your research, you will find there are lots of groups of sun worship who get together and derive pranic energy also from the sun, who worship the sun. Some of them do use Gayatri mantra also to chant. So it's a very, very powerful mantra. We will see the meaning of this. One of the quotations here says, Na Gayatriha Parova Mantram Asti. There is no mantra greater than Gayatri, except Om. So Om is a single syllable, but when we add more alphabets, etc., then they say Gayatri is the second most powerful mantra. And so what is the significance is this, that it will invoke the buddhi, the special capabilities of this buddhi. The etymological meaning of this mantra is Gayantam Trayate Yasmat iti Gayatri. So Gayatri means that which protects the person who chants it. Our intellect has to be protected. One may ask that why my intellect needs to be protected. Because it is very precious. Anything that is precious has to be protected. Now, one aspect. Second aspect is that the buddhi is that with which we make decisions, with which we make choices, with which we experience many things. So that buddhi must be protected. Protected from what? From the temptations in the world, from the emotional turbulence. Like Arjun's buddhi got overwhelmed by emotions, so he could not decide correctly. Same way, sometimes temptations, they overwhelm us. We know sometimes what is right, but we are not able to follow. Arjun asks that in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, that in spite of knowing what is wrong, what compels a person to do that? Why does a man commit sin even though one knows that that is wrong? And there Bhagavan replies that, Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajoguna samudbhavaha. It is the desire born out of attachment. So desire and anger, they overwhelm the thought process, the knowledge of the person. So from desires, from temptations, from emotional overwhelming, the buddhi has to be protected. From wrong notions, the buddhi has to be protected. You see, many times perverted logic we can use. Logic is like a double-edged sword. Many people use perverted logic, so one should be saved from that perverted logic also. Because when we use a perverted logic, it pulls us down, pulls the other people also down. In the world, there are so many ways in which the perverted logic works. So buddhi has to be protected from many of these things. From procrastination, laziness, from compromising the ideals and values. So all these things are there which completely sap away the energy of this buddhi. And hence the Gayatri mantra is a mantra to protect the buddhi and to activate its subtle capabilities. So it's a Vedic mantra, and the mantra actually is Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. That is called the Tripada Gayatri. The Gayatri mantra is in 3 quarters. Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Each of these are 8 syllables only. So Gayatri mantra has 24 syllables. So Gayatri is 24 syllables, and some places you will also find a version which instead of saying Varenyam, there is Ana which is full. So it says Varenyam. So when it comes to Varenyam, it becomes 24 syllables, and Varenyam actually is 23 syllables. Both versions are correct. Varenyam or Varenyam. Varenyam, 23 syllables means Nichrit Gayatri, and Varenyam, 24 syllables means the Gayatri which is Tripada Gayatri. Now the Rishi to whom this mantra is revealed is Vishwamitra Rishi. Vishwamitra Rishi did a lot of tapasya, and to him this mantra is revealed. Like Mrityunjay mantra we saw, Vasishtha, Vamadeva, Kahola, to them this mantra is revealed. Like that here it is Vishwamitra Rishi to whom this mantra is revealed. And when mantra is revealed, it is revealed as it is with the alphabets. This we discussed last time also, that the mantra is not written down by the Rishi in the language which they know. It is revealed as it is with the syllables because it's a sound symbol. Mantra is a powerful sound symbol. And the mantra is not authored by the Rishi. The Rishi is not mantra karta. The Rishi is called mantra drishta. Is the seer of the mantra, to whom the mantra is revealed. Who revealed it? Gayatri Devi revealed the mantra. So this mantra is a revelation to Vishwamitra Rishi. And who is the Devata of this mantra? See, the Devata of the mantra is one on whom the person meditates while chanting the mantra. So the Devata is Savita. Savita means the sun, Surya Bhagavan. We say Tat Savitur Varenyam. So Savita is the Devata. So the mantra, when we chant, we visualize either Mother Gayatri, because Gayatri is the chanda, is the meter in which it is written. So every mantra which has 24 syllables, that mantra is called Gayatri. So here we have Surya Gayatri actually. We have like that Shiva Gayatri, Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat. Vishnu Gayatri, Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Like that there are Gayatri mantras for every deity, which means the mantra is written in the chanda called Gayatri. Same way here, this is the Surya Gayatri. So of all the Gayatri mantras, this is the Surya Gayatri, and Surya is connected to the Buddhi. Intellect is connected to the Buddhi. Chandrama, moon is connected to the mind. But Surya is connected to Buddhi. And hence, it is that this mantra invokes Surya Devata because the Buddhi is invoked. The power of the Buddhi is invoked by invoking Surya Devata. Now, before we start the chanting of the mantra in our daily life in sadhana, we have to remember these three aspects very clearly. Invoke the Rishi, invoke the Devata, and know the meter. The meter is Gayatri, and how it should be chanted. So the intonations are there. So the intonations, when we follow, very simple intonations, they produce a sound effect. Nowadays, people sing Gayatri mantra with all kinds of music and harmonium, peti, and tabla, and so many things. They keep it as a ringtone also, and the doorbell also will sing that, and many things they put the Gayatri mantra into. See, it's a sattvic mantra, so there is no harm that comes. But if I want the sound power of it, if I want the vibratory effect of it, then it must be chanted appropriately with its intonations. And when we chant it with the intonations, we are also upholding the Vedic tradition, because that's the way in which it is supposed to be chanted. When we make it musical, etc., slowly the sound power of it and the Vedic intonative beauty of it, all that we start losing. And that's how slowly the culture goes through decadence. So it's very important that Vedic mantras especially must be chanted with proper intonation. There are many Puranic mantras that don't need to be chanted because there are no intonations. They can be chanted in any form. But Vedic mantras must be chanted in the proper intonations. And hence, when we remember the meter and the intonations, then it becomes easy for us to chant in the Vedic way. So how does one chant it? Om Bhur Bhuvassuvaha Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. As a simple way to chant. I will put it on the group also later. There's a nice audio recording of Swami Brahmanandji that I will put on the group. So you can use it in your daily sadhana if you like. So this is Gayatri, the basic information about Gayatri. Now there is a nice Puranic story that Brahmaji was approached by Indra, and Indra told Brahmaji that, you know, the Vedas, you are the creator, and you know the Vedas have come out of you. But for us Devatas, this study of this Veda is very difficult. It's very huge and voluminous. Can you please give us some shortcut? Give us something which is a summary of the Vedas which we can apply. So Brahmaji said, the 24 syllables of Gayatri Mantra contain the entire essence of the Veda. How does it contain the essence of the Veda? Because the Gayatri Mantra actually is to tell us that we are one with the infinite immortal self. Jiva Brahma Ikya is the purpose of Gayatri. Shankaracharya ji also wrote commentary on that. So we will come to that meaning later. But that's the essence of entire Vedic knowledge. And that is what is conveyed also by these Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma, all that. But those are to be meditated, contemplated upon. Gayatri, we can do japa. Mahavakyas are not meant for japa. So Gayatri Mantra can be utilized for japa as well as meditation. And hence it is easy for the Devatas and for us also to follow. So Brahmaji said, chant the 24 syllables. Now Indra went back after some days and he says, you know, these 24 syllables are too much. We don't have time, and to chant that 108 times takes a long time. So can you give us still something shorter? So Brahmaji said, okay, chant the 7 Vyahritis. Bhuhu, Bhuva, Suvaha, Maha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam. 7 Vyahritis, they represent the 7 higher worlds. He said, you chant that, that is enough. Now Indra said, even 7 is very difficult for us. So Brahmaji said, okay, at least do 3. Bhuhu, Bhuva, Suvaha. Indra said, can you still make it shorter? Brahmaji said, Om. Chant just Om. Luckily, Indra did not go back. Human being today would go back to Brahmaji saying 3 syllables are very difficult. U and Ma. But luckily he didn't go. So Om is the shortest syllables. So the power of Gayatri Mantra is this, you know, the Vedic essence is there in 24 syllables, the essence is in 7 Vyahritis into 3 Vyahritis, 3 into Om. Hence, Om has the power of the entire Veda. The most subtlest mantra is Om. And to continuously meditate on Om is not very easy because it's a sound symbol. Actually, Om doesn't even have a form, you know. People have given form to Om. Om is Akshara Brahma. It's a sound symbol of the Supreme Truth. But the very fact that human being has given a form to Om means that human being needs a form. Without form, one can't meditate only. So Om is being subtlest, then the essence of that you find in the Vyahritis. So generally speaking, in Gayatri Mantra, we add 3 Vyahritis and the 24 syllables and chant it together. Om is added before each one. That's why just now when I chanted, I said Om Bhur Bhuva Suvaha and Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. That's the traditional way, proper Vedic way to chant the mantra if I am using the Vyahritis. Many times you may find that some Pandits and other people use all the 7 Vyahriti. And they will add Om with each. Om Bhuhu, Om Bhuvaha, Om Suvaha, Om Maha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Om Satyam, Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. You know, this Gayatri Mantra has lot of these variations. So depending on what sadhana I am doing, what purpose I want, this keeps changing. Like when one does pranayam, One is actually supposed to have the capability of retaining the prana for that much time as it takes to chant the Gayatri mantra 11 times. So one has to take the prana in and hold the breath till 11 times one finishes chanting Gayatri mantra with 7 Vyahritis. That's why pranayama is not to be done just like that. One has to train oneself to build that capability to hold the prana shakti, because you know what will happen if we do that? One will get into samadhi avastha. Because body is still, prana also has become still. Now with the mind, when I am chanting, if the mind becomes really single pointed, that person will completely go into samadhi avastha. So that's the beauty of that Gayatri mantra, or even Om. Suppose you can't chant Gayatri mantra 11 times, then you have to chant Om 33 times while holding the breath. Then exhale. Now, please don't start doing it like that. I'm just saying that is what the tradition says, because holding the breath has a lot of implications on the body, blood pressure, many things. So if any of you have any BP or heart issues and other things, then don't hold the breath. Just take the breath, leave it. No holding. So now the essence of the Gayatri mantra is what we have to see, the meaning. Before we go into the meaning, there is a ceremony associated with the Gayatri mantra, which is the Upanayana ceremony. Upa means near, Nayana means to take. So the student who is ready for the study of the Vedas, before one studies the Veda, one is initiated into the Gayatri mantra by a guru. So that is called the second birth of the child, because the first birth is given by the parents, that's the physical birth. But the second birth is given by the guru. When the Gayatri mantra is given to the student, the guru gives birth to the student in the spiritual world. And hence, Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhus cha Sakha Tvameva. Because the guru gives the second birth. And typically the Gayatri mantra initiation must happen between the age of 5 to 8 maximum. Sometimes, 6. 6 to 8, because the student must study the Veda. It is meant for that. But nowadays what has happened, people get married, one day before that they will take Gayatri mantra. And they tell the Pandit also, I am not going to be able to chant this mantra. I am just doing it because my parents want me to do it. That is not actually the reason why it should be taken. Just to, as a formality, it is not to be done. The power behind it is very important, and the significance of that mantra. That Vedic knowledge, or any knowledge in fact. See, today also when the child goes to study, any academic qualification one may have, to gain knowledge, the buddhi has to be used. What is the child doing to prepare the buddhi? One just gets up, takes bath, goes to school. Over. Maybe stand there for prayer for 5 minutes and then again one starts. But every single day in the earlier tradition, the person goes early morning, stands in the river, waist deep, facing the sun, one chants the mantra, does a Sandhya Vandan, prepares one's buddhi. That has a lot of impact. And those who have been doing Gayatri mantra, you know, the Gayatri Parivar has done so much of research on this Gayatri mantra, and they brought out such nice literature on the Gayatri mantra also, as well as the scientific impact of the Gayatri mantra on the whole body, on the mind. A lot of research they have been doing, and on the 7 chakras and many things, a lot of beautiful impact this mantra has. So before one starts the Veda Abhyasa or academic study, one should get initiated and then continue the mantra till one actually takes sannyas. Only when one takes sannyas, then one stops the Gayatri mantra japa. But till that time one must do. So here I have written from 6 to 24, because after 24 one gets into Grahasthashram. So ideally at least before that one should take the Gayatri Mantra, so that the Grahasthashram also sadhana will continue. And we should have one more clarity, that the women can chant the Gayatri Mantra, they can be given the Upavita. This is our tradition. Vedic times, lot of women, they were Rishi Patnis also, Guru, they were also Guru Patnis, they used to teach also. So that Gayatri Mantra can be chanted by the women, there is nothing wrong in that. Many people come and ask me, can women chant Gayatri Mantra? Because somehow this has come into a misunderstanding that women can't chant Gayatri Mantra. The lady, the Devi who revealed it is the Gayatri Devi, she is a woman. So why not women can chant? Only one restriction is there, is if the woman wants to conceive, then for that much time the woman should not chant, because the mantra generates a lot of heat in the body. Any mantra japa will generate heat in the body. And if you chant the mantra very intensely, then the conception process can get affected. So they say don't chant when one wants to conceive, that's all. Before, after that, one can chant the mantra. There is no problem at all. So earlier days, women also used to have the Janevu Samskar. So it is a myth to think that, in our culture, women are not to be given Janevu or they are not to chant the Gayatri Mantra. It's a complete myth. It is a decadence of the culture actually. Now, another point to understand is that when a Janevu Samskar is given, just by wearing a Janevu, a person doesn't become a Brahmana. This is a very important shloka from the Manusmriti, which says, Janmana jayate shudraha samskarat dvija uchyate. Vedabhyasi bhaved vipraha brahma janati iti brahmanaha. That everybody is born as a Shudra only, no matter where one is born. Why? Because if I think I am the body, then I am a Shudra only. Samskarat dvija uchyate. When the person is initiated into the Gayatri Mantra and told that there is a higher way of life, you are that supreme consciousness, you are not this body, the initiation is given. That is the second birth. That time that person is called Dvija. And this samskar was given to Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, all three. It was not given to Shudra only because the Shudra buddhi is full of tamogna. So the power of the mantra will not be invoked in that mind. If that mind becomes little more dynamic, the intellect becomes little more dynamic, then the Shudra also will get the Gayatri Mantra. So the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, these four categorizations are not according to birth. They are according to the temperament, according to the combination of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So the Manusmriti is very clear, which says this, that by giving the samskar, a person is born Dvija, he becomes twice born. Samskarat Dvija Uchyate. Then that person becomes qualified to study the Veda. Vedabhyasi bhaved vipraha. A person who studies the Veda becomes a knowledgeable, scholarly person, and following that teachings, when that person realizes the Supreme, that person is called Brahmana. Now all these are written in our scriptures very clearly, but a lot of people don't use these things, they misuse, they bring a lot of manipulation into picture, and then whole system gets destroyed, where people are against the Janevu Samskar because they consider Janevu as a symbol of caste system. They think that the Janevu is a symbol of exploitation. And you know what all happens, that is very strange and sad actually, that we Hindus, we have forgotten this glory of our culture. Last year, I don't know if you know, R. Madhavan, one of the actors. So R. Madhavan, he acted in 3 Idiots and many popular movies also. So he had put up a picture of his him and his son changing the Janevu on the Raksha Bandhan day, because that's the day you're supposed to change. He put up the picture on Twitter and he got so much of flack on Twitter. He was trolled on Twitter. Why? Because people said this is the symbol of caste system. Are Janevu is not a symbol of caste system. Janevu is a symbol of reminder to that person that your goal in life is to realize absolute truth. Lot of other types of propaganda happen to destroy our culture, but the sad part would be that Hindus only fight against the Hindus to pull them down. That is the biggest problem here. Other people doing it is still understandable, but our Hindus, they don't follow the system, and somebody who is following the system, they pull that person also down. The meaning of the Janevu is so beautiful. You just see that. The 3 threads, there are 3 threads and there is a knot. Now every day the person is supposed to hold the knot and chant the Gayatri Mantra minimum 11 times. Minimum. Ideal is to do 27, 54, 108. But if nothing, minimum 11 times. Now a lot of people ask me that what is there, for the Hindus? There is no specific practice prescribed for the Hindus. For Muslims, there is 5 times namaz. For Christian, there is Sunday mass. But what is it for the Hindus? This is the practice for the Hindus. One is supposed to chant the Gayatri Mantra every day. Till one takes sannyas, one has to chant every day. And hold the thread. So what does the thread symbolize? The thread symbolizes 3 threads. So one level of understanding is it symbolizes my 3 duties. Towards my parents and ancestors, that is my Pitrus. Towards the society and the environment. And towards the great rishis. This is as far as the Grihastha is concerned. Now, as far as a Brahmachari is concerned, for the Brahmachari, the 3 threads are God, Guru, and Scripture. That one is concerned only with these 3 in the stage of Brahmacharya. Because one has gone to Gurukul, one wants to gain knowledge. So God, Guru, and Scriptures. The focus is on these 3. So that's what the Shikha is. So all the hair would be shaved, only a Shikha will be there. Meaning hair is a symbol of desires. You give up all the other desires, leave this. Desire is only to gain knowledge, to study the scripture, serve the Guru. That's it. Focus on these 3. And then when one gets into Grihastha Ashram, take care of the parents, the ancestors, including the family. Take care of the society and the environment. Take care of the debt to the rishis. Meaning live the culture that the rishis have given to us. It also symbolizes 3 aspects of Satyam, Ahimsa and Brahmacharya. That these are the 3 core values of Sanatana Dharma. All values you can put down to these 3. Satyam means no intellectual compromise. If I know something is right, I will not compromise, I will live it. Ahimsa means mentally having no sense of hatred or violence against anybody. Brahmacharya means to live in moderation with all my sense contacts in the world. No extremes. So now imagine every single day when I stand in the river, I chant the Gayatri Mantra, I am reminding myself of my duties. I am reminding myself that I have to live a value-based life without compromise, without violence, without any excesses. That is such a beautiful tradition. Now, where is the question of any caste exploitation coming in? This Brahminism and all that lot of people we speak about, that's a problem of human being. It's not a problem of the system which has been created or the mantra. All those castes have exploited the others. That's a human issue. See, Brahmins have withheld the knowledge. At some point that has happened. Kshatriyas have also dominated, destroyed, controlled. Vaishyas, through profiteering, they have also exploited. And Shudras have also exploited. Through so many other aspects like reservations and burning the the literature and not following the culture and lot of things like that. Everybody has exploited. That is human tendency for greed, control, power. But the system by itself, that's why Gurudev used to say that caste is unavoidable, but casteism is a pain. There cannot be a organization which doesn't have these four. There will be thinkers, there will be leaders, there will be entrepreneurs, there will be the workers. The finance department will be there, the clerks, etc. will be there, the leaders will be there, and the board and CEO and management all will be there. So the issue is not about which caste you belong to. The issue is about how we treat each other with the psychological attitude of oneness, that we all are human beings. And depending on our temperament, we have to choose our work and our profession, which today's age, people call it as aptitude test. Even in a job, will you not take the profile and the interview of that person? Will anybody be given any job just like that? No. The right qualification one needs to have. And so here it is that the Gayatri Mantra is chanted to remind oneself of the duties, of the values, of the three gunas, that Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. This whole world is filled with Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. I have to go beyond these three gunas. And that's why that knot is called Brahma Granthi. Brahma Granthi means the Supreme Lord. So every single day I remind myself that my goal of life is to know who am I, to know the infinite pure consciousness. Now imagine if our youngsters learn this aspect, understand what is the meaning of this mantra, that how do I live my life following these three values, doing my duty towards the people around me, my family and the rishis, etc. Knowing that through this, my mind will become purified and I will discover my supreme self. Brahma Granthi indicates the goal. So Brahma Granthi is the goal, three threads are the means. If the youngsters know this, will they go into drugs, depression, suicide and all this? They are going so much into it because there is no idea of all this. Blindly aping something and then following into certain traps, one is just lost. So this is the culture of ours, and why the Gayatri Mantra was given right at the childhood and the child used to chant. Now upasana is to be done with this mantra. So upa means near, asana means to sit. So when I sit close to an ideal, I absorb that ideal. The popular thing which we know, as you think, so you become. So whatever upasana I do, suppose I meditate on Shivji, all the qualities of Shivji, when I visualize the form, like last time we did, the Mrityunjay mantra. So all those qualities of the Lord will come into me because I am meditating, I am emphasizing in my mind. Same way, when I meditate on the sun, what all the sun represents, all those qualities I internalize. So this is called upasana. And every single day when I train my mind, upasana has this benefit that on a simple, ordinary symbol, something very extraordinary is superimposed. Like for the army soldier, the flag is not a piece of cloth. For the army soldier, the flag represents the honor of the country and the person is ready to die for it. Why? Because for that person, the flag has some extraordinary ideal superimposed on it and it has a deep value. In the same way, for the devotee, the form is not just murti or a picture. It is the Lord himself. So the bhav comes in the person. In the same way, when one stands in front of the sun, those qualities one internalizes. So in the childhood, now so many details one is not told. 6-year-old child, 7-year-old child, how will the child understand so much of all this? So there is a story that is told to the child. So in this Taittiriya Aranyaka, the story comes that there is an island called Mandeha Island, and on that island there are lots of demons who are there. And every day these demons, they fly in the sky and they want to eat the sun. Now sun is the source of life, sun is the source of light, energy, everything. So if these demons eat the sun, then the whole world will be in trouble. So then what should we do to protect the sun? So he said, the story says that the child is told that, you must stand in the river, chant the Gayatri mantra, and then you offer the arghya. When you offer the water to the sun, that water acts like a lightning to the demons, and these demons, they will fall down. And the sun will be protected, the whole world will be saved. Now as a small child, the child says, yeah, it is my duty, I have to protect the sun. So every day goes and chants. As the person grows, then slowly one understands the symbolism also beautifully. The same story, but beautiful symbolism. That Mandeha island means what? Man is the mind, Deha is the body. So on this island of mind and body, this Raga and Dvesha, they live. And every day when we wake up from the sleep, our Raga and Dvesha also comes up. Now, we should not come under the influence of that Raga and Dvesha. Our Buddhi must be clear. So the sun in the Buddhi must be clear. Otherwise, we act out of attachment, aversion, and we bind ourselves. So Gayatri Mantra helps us by ensuring that we don't allow this Raga and Dvesha to come up. We destroy this Raga and Dvesha by remembering the Supreme Lord. By going beyond attachment, going beyond body identification. And so whenever the mind is taught this, to put aside Raga and Dvesha, the mind finds a lot of peace. And whenever the mind is peaceful, the intellect becomes very sharp. So when we learn to chant the mantra, it helps not only at that time in the morning when I chant, but through the day also. Whenever the mind gets disturbed, I can immediately start chanting the mantra, mind becomes quiet. Then my decisions can be rational, right, and rewarding. Otherwise, our decisions are very colored by emotions, sentiments, and all that. And so the story is beautiful, but it has such deep symbolism. So the child who learns this and grows chanting the Gayatri mantra, then understands the psychological impact of this. So now what is the time to chant the mantra? Sandhi time it is to be chanted. That is morning time and evening. Sandhi means meeting of two time periods. So just before sunrise and just before sunset. So when the sun has not risen fully, nor is it dark fully at that time. And when the sun has not set fully, nor is it shining fully, evening time. So 2 times one is chanting, that is called the Dvikala Gayatri. That is a tradition. Veda says only about Dvikala Gayatri. And what is the impact of that? In the night I have been in tamas. So to come out of tamas, before I get into the day's work, I need to activate myself. And what should I activate first? Not just the body. I have to activate my buddhi properly. Through the whole day, I go through a lot of work and many things I face, ups and downs. Before I get into the night, where again tamas will take over, I must again come into a balanced sattvic mood. So from Rajas, I come back to Sattva Guna by chanting the mantra. If you see, the records, the psychological research and record, it very clearly shows that a lot of fights, conflicts happen in the night. Because both of them are tired, both of them are exhausted, intellectual stamina is down. Small things will irritate. Now then keep on fighting. So recharge in the evening, chant the Gayatri mantra, quieten down for some time, and then go through the rest of the evening and go to bed. Early to sleep and early to rise. Now, today that doctors are telling us so much that, our metabolic cycle will be better if we follow the cycle of the sun. Our health will be better, immunity will be better, because sun controls this metabolic cycle. The later we sleep, more harm it is for the body, and the later we eat also. So Dvikala Sandhya is our culture. Then in between people brought one more in the afternoon also. So then it became Trikala Sandhya. But minimum 11 times stand in the water and chant. Now why should I stand in the water and chant? See, even medically they will tell you that when we stand in the water and the river water and when we chant, it helps to build brahmacharya. It helps to strengthen the virility in the body. And so it keeps the kama vikar also down. And that person remains strong, and facing the sun, one has to chant. Now you may say, Swamiji, there is no river nowadays. Now where to go and chant? Don't worry, rivers are not there. At least go up or go out of your house and see the sun. Face the sun. Meditate on the sun here. Visualize here. And then chant the mantra. Have some water in the hand or in the kalash. Chant the mantra and then offer the arghya to the sun. You may say, what difference it makes to the sun? We want to conserve the water. It happens like this only, slowly we lose all the cultural practices, traditions, everything goes away. You see, what people used to do is, water is a great purifier. So they would take water and they would offer arghya to the sun. Not that sun needs that water. Water is symbol of purity, water is symbol of detachment, and giving water is symbol that we need to also learn to let go in life. Emotions of ours, we hold on to, we cling to these emotions. That's why fights happen in life. Because we cling to emotions. We need to let go. So give some water and be pure in mind. So water symbolizes purity and detachment. These two are very important in our life for our peace and for spiritual evolution. And also the important aspect is, in the 5 elements, space and air we cannot hold. Then comes fire. Fire also we cannot hold directly. And sun already is a symbol of fire. What next can we hold is water. So hold the water, offer it to the sun. That is called Arghya Pradhan. Even as a Devata, for Surya Devata, water is very good. Offer the Arghya to the sun. Like for every Devata, there is one thing that the Devata likes. Like Shivji likes Bilva Patra, Vishnu Bhagavan likes Tulsi Patra, Devi likes Kumkum. Surya Devata has water. So offer water to Surya Devata. That's the tradition. Stand and offer the water. So how much time to chant? Minimum 11 times. Now you may say, why should I chant only at sunrise and sunset? Why can't I chant in the night also? See, nobody says don't chant at night. But the tradition is that once I face the Surya and I chant, all these values are connected to that. So I chant between sunrise and sunset, looking at Surya when the Surya is there as a symbol in front of me, as a symbol of Ishvara. So between sunrise and sunset, if you want to chant at night, it is your choice. You can chant at night. Surya Devata is not going to feel offended or unhappy. Okay, why is this man chanting in the night? Because Surya Devata, it does not have, Surya is still functioning 24 hours. There is no Sunday for the sun also. So you can chant anytime. Now this is the meaning of the mantra. Literal meaning of the mantra is Bhuhu, earth. Bhuvaha is the interspace. Suvaha means the higher worlds. Please remember, these higher worlds are not geographical locations. Don't start searching that between earth and higher world, what is, where is the higher world above earth? It is like dream. If I ask you, where is your dream? Can you show me your dream? Where is the dream world? Can you say that my dream world is 2 inches above my head? No, it is a state of consciousness. So this state of consciousness is what I have to understand, that is my true self. Absolute state of consciousness is my true self. But there are layers in between. So these 7 layers are not 7 geographical places. They are states of consciousness. Like waking also is a state of consciousness. Dream is a state. In that way, Bhuvarloka is a plane of consciousness, state of consciousness. And just like in dream, jivas go through different experiences. In the Suvarloka also, the jivas experience certain things. And you can go to Suvarloka only after dropping the body. So Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, these 3 are enlivened by whom? He says Tat Savituhu, that Surya Devata who enlivens this universe, not just this physical universe, but also the interspace and the higher worlds, who is most adorable, Varenyam. Why? Because of him there is life. Bhargaha Devasya, because of whom there is effulgence in this whole world. I meditate on the effulgence of that most adorable sun. Why? Naha Dhiyaha, our intellect, not my intellect only. Every time I chant the Gayatri Mantra, I am praying to the Lord that please empower the intellect of all of us. Naha Dhiyaha, Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat, please illumine. Meaning, may our intellect be sharp. The most precious faculty in the human life is this buddhi. Oh Lord, please keep this buddhi very sharp, so that I can realize this truth. And of course, I make right decisions in my life. So this is the literal meaning, that I meditate on the effulgence of the most adorable sun who illumines the 3 worlds, so that may he illumine all our intellects. So that is one aspect. Now, this same meaning, same mantra has many beautiful aspects to it. See, one is when we visualize sun, the very fact that I visualize light, there is a lot of positivity associated with light. Light has a lot of psychological impact also on our mind and our body. When we are locked up in a room, when we have not seen sunlight for a long time, or in certain places, in the certain countries which are not in the tropical belt, then sun doesn't rise for a long time. For many days, sun is not there. It's very gloomy, dark. People go through a lot of depression in such places. The instances of depression there are much higher than in tropical areas. So sunlight has a lot of impact on our mind, on our body. So very fact that I visualize sun and I am facing the sun, body also gets vitamin D, and one also has the psychological impact of more positivity, more energy. So that is one aspect of this. Second is the symbolic aspect of the sun, that what does the sun symbolize? So Bhu, Bhuva, Suvaha in the symbolic meaning are my body, my mind and my intellect. And sun is a symbol of this holistic nourishment of all the 3. So at the physical level, it is light, it is brightness, it is brilliance. Also at the physical level, it is tireless service, because sun continuously serves. So we must have that capability to serve continuously. Bhuhu. Then warmth of love. All of us need love at the mental level. To love and to be loved is the greatest privilege of life. So how much do I love? How much do I give my love to people around me, to beings around me? And sun is a symbol of knowledge also. So that is for the buddhi, the light of knowledge. So in my life, I need these three. Now, such a beautiful mantra it is that every day I am telling myself that, oh Lord, bless me with the capability to serve physically, to love mentally, to gain knowledge intellectually. How nice it is to begin the day with this kind of a reminder that my life is meant for these three things: serve, love, and gain the knowledge. Also the sun, as we said, Gurudev used to tell us this: let not the storms of my heart cover the sun in the head. So our emotions, when they become turbulent, it is a light of reasoning, light of knowledge, light of discrimination that helps to quieten down this intellect. And so the more we learn to live in objectivity, every single day I'm training my mind to say that learn to be aligned with the buddhi. Let the emotions not eclipse the thoughts. Let my discrimination not get eclipsed by the emotions. See, Arjun came out of his emotional disturbance with the strength of knowledge and surrender. And the knowledge that the Lord is in front of him brought about that surrender in his life. That he was able to let go of his attachments and know that he is an instrument and the Lord is the doer. So this is a subtler, deeper meaning of the mantra, because the buddhi of ours has this another beautiful aspect of being an instrument. The karta bhav is there in the buddhi. That karta bhav has to be surrendered. So when I pray that please illumine my buddhi, it is to illumine this bhav that, oh Lord, may I think that I am only an instrument, I am not a doer. At the moment I am thinking I am the doer. So I am the doer, so I will be the enjoyer, so I am getting caught in the cycle of birth and death. But when I am not the doer, then there is nothing to get bound by. So I act in the world, but the karma will not bind me, because karta is not me, karta is the Lord, and I dedicate all my karma phala to the Lord. I dedicate all the kartapan also to the Lord. Now I become free. So this mantra that way is a mantra of surrender of doership. The buddhi is really illumined when the doership is given up. Now coming to the last part of this mantra is the Vedantic meaning of the mantra. So bhuhu means the waking state, bhuvaha means the dream state, and suvaha means the deep sleep state. Tat savituhu, that consciousness, which is the common factor because of whom the body, mind, intellect are functioning, is the source of life. Many people think prana is the source of life. No, prana is not the source of life. Prana is also enlivened by consciousness. Without consciousness, prana cannot function. Prana is inert. Prana doesn't know anything. But the consciousness makes the prana also function. That's what the Upanishad says. Yat pranena na praniti. Yena prana praniyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi. Nedam yaridam upasate. That which cannot be grasped by the prana, but because of which prana is able to do its work, know that to be Brahman. So that prana is not enlivening this body. Consciousness is enlivening this body, mind, intellect. So I am meditating on that consciousness, which is most adorable, because of whom the BMI can function, and because of whom waking, dream, deep sleep are possible. May that consciousness enliven my buddhi so that I can recognize my true self as that consciousness. That's the Vedantic meaning of this. That Surya is symbolic of consciousness. And just like the planets, they revolve around the sun, in the same way, mere presence of consciousness, matter gets enlivened. Matter means body, prana, senses, mind, intellect, ego. All this is matter. They are able to function only because of presence of consciousness. That consciousness which is in my heart, I am not able to experience right now. So I am meditating on the consciousness which is manifesting outside as the sun, so that my buddhi turns within to realize the consciousness within. So that consciousness is in my heart, that I am that pure self, I am not the body, mind, intellect. So Shankaracharya ji wrote that Gayatri is actually to reveal Jiva Brahma Aikya. Shankaracharya has written a nice commentary on this. And that's where he says this, Gayatri Shuddha Pratyak Brahmatma Aikya Bodhika. It is that which reveals the oneness of Jiva and Brahman. The purest inner self. The self in me is the self in all, the self in me is the self in the Ishvara. Like the water in the wave and the water in the ocean is one and the same. There is no difference at all. So to experience that is the goal of life. And that is the state having gained which nothing more remains to be gained. So Gayatri Mantra actually reveals to us our own true self. And that's why the mantra is the essence of the Vedas. And so the Vyahritis in this Vedantic context, the Vyahritis Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha can also mean Sat, Chit and Anand. Why? Because Bhu, Bhavati means existence. Bhuvaha means Chaitanya, so Chit. And Swarloka, heaven, is associated with enjoyment, so it is bliss, Ananda. So Gayatri Mantra by itself, Tat Savitur Varenyam, that and this, when we combine, it makes us realize the absolute truth. So if suppose I am not using 24 syllables, I meditate only on Bhu Bhuva Suvaha, then also I can realize the absolute consciousness. And if I meditate only on Om, then also I can realize the same consciousness, because A, U and Ma, they also mean the same thing. So that's how the essence of Gayatri Mantra is in the, essence of Veda is in Gayatri, essence of Gayatri in three Vyahritis, essence of that is in Om. And so that is what the Gayatri Mantra is. And I end with this quote. This is a quote by Meher Baba. Fast mind is a sick mind. Fast mind here means a psychologically chattering mind. A fast mind is a sick mind. A slow mind is a sound mind, but a still mind is a divine mind. So this Gayatri Mantra is to still the mind and to invoke this consciousness, which is our true nature. So that is where I will stop for now. And if anybody wants to share or ask anything, you are welcome.
So what is the best mantra to chant, Swamiji?
The best mantra to chant is...
and everything.
Sorry?
You see the importance in everything when you explain that. So...
See, the best mantra I always say is, what is your Ishta Devata? Who is your Ishta Devata? The mantra of your Ishta Devata is the best mantra to chant. Because devotion is the key. And we should remember only one thing. All these mantras are means to connect to that same one Supreme. So there may be 10 roads to reach one place. We will use any one road only. So whichever road I take, I will reach the same destination. So if I chant my Ishta Mantra, with that Ishta Mantra also I can get the benefit of Gayatri Mantra and health and wealth and prosperity and everything that I need.
But last time you had said that in Kali Yuga, Hare Krishna mantra is the best to chant. Once a few months back, or weeks, months back.
No, see, that is a mantra for given in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. There's Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Now, why is it said that is the best mantra in Kali Yuga to chant? Because the human mind needs a form to associate with. Without form, it is very difficult for human mind to function. And even in the form, sun is a form, there's no doubt, but many times we need emotions to be anchored. Now for emotions to be anchored, a human form is required. And in human form also, the form of Krishna is a very powerful form, because how Bhagavan lived in the Treta, in the Dwapar Yuga, if we are able to live with that smartness, see, he is a combination of Sattva Guna, which is purity and smartness both. And Bhagavan Ram is a symbol of Dharma, doing the duties. Now, if these two we can follow, and also because they are avatars, so there is a historical association with them. There are many other forms which are Puranic forms. People believe, don't believe. But Ram and Krishna are historical. They have happened. They have taken form on this earth. So in that context, it is easier for the human being to relate. But whichever mantra you chant, the idea is you are invoking that same Lord only. And blessings come from Bhagavan only. So whatever you seek also Bhagavan will bless with.
Swamiji, I have a question. This is Priya Shri. That if you're married and your Ishta Devta of your husband is different from what you have been following when you were not married. And also, you know, the Kul Devta are different and the Ishta Devta is different. So if you can just throw some light on that.
See, the beauty of this culture is, in some way or the other, they will connect you to the divine. Now, Kul Devata is a concept in our culture that every Kula has a Devata. Like we earlier had Kula Guru, Kula Vaidya. Like today we have family physician. I don't know whether still their family physicians exist or not in that sense, because now people go to many doctors. But at least when I was growing up, there was a family physician. So we used to go to that person only. So every Kula has a connection with a Kula Devata. So whether anybody has chosen Ishta Devata or not, at least the Kul Devata is there who they will all worship, and they believe that the Devata's grace keeps our family happy. So there will be a Kul Devata or a Devi, and there will be a mandir of that Kul Devata and Devi somewhere, and then everybody of that family will go there. A tradition will be at least once a year or so, one should visit the Kul Devi or Devata, because one may have traveled and settled anywhere else. These are ways to connect to the spiritual truth. Kul Devata and Devi are actually specific jivas who get their power from the Supreme Lord. They are just like any other Devata, like Indra, Varuna, Vayu, etc. So they are Devatas. They get their power from Ishvara. Gurudev used to tell this as departmental heads. They are like departmental heads. You know, finance department, somebody is the head, PR department, somebody is the head. So they are departmental heads. Their power comes from the main boss, whoever is their main CEO or COO, whoever it is. Same way, Ishta Devata is the Supreme Lord, from whom all these Devatas derive their power. So if I have an Ishta Devata, then in my daily sadhana, I worship the Ishta Devata, that is enough. To keep the family tradition alive, I may go for Kul Devata's worship sometimes whenever it is necessary, or once in a year or so that that parampara continues, because it's a beautiful parampara. There is nothing, one should not dismiss that parampara as such. At least it keeps the people connected to the divine. And also it has the freedom. So in a house, if there are 5 different people, each of them have different deities, or some of them don't even have Ishta Devata, at least all the 5 will worship the Kul Devata together. So they will come together for that. So if you are worshipping a Ishta Devata, in your daily sadhana, Kul Devata's worship is not necessary, because if you worship the Lord directly, then you are taking care of all the rest of them also.
Thank you. But what about the married, when you get married and they have separate Ishtavtas and...
Let that be Ishtadevata separate. Now, how does it matter? No problem at all. Nobody says that your Ishtadevata should become one only. Because you are an individual jiva. Your journey continues even after this life to the next life, and your connection with your Ishtadevata is a very deep connection. Your connection with the spouse in this life is limited to this life only. Next life, somebody else may be the spouse, but your connection to Ishtadevata will remain the same. So I don't have to change my Ishtadevata because I married somebody this time and their Ishtadevata is someone else. Each one can marry different, worship different Ishtadevatas. There is no problem in that at all.
Thank you so much.
See, that question we should also understand in terms of the upbringing, the culture, the traditions, because many people come from different families. No? So it's not necessary that they have to just adopt what the family of the other person is doing. If you feel comfortable, do it. Otherwise, continue your Ishtadevata. There's nothing wrong about that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Hari
Jai
Om.
Shri Krishna, Hari Om.
Thank you,
Om
Swami.
Soma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.